And good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name's Zach with ATS. I'm our National Accounts Manager. If you are unfamiliar with ATS, thank you for joining our ATS University. Must be a leap of faith for you to come in. You must be very interested in long-term care solutions and plumbing solutions for those applications. We cover a wide range of topics at the ATS University as we try to showcase the products that sponsor the ATS Spec Tool and how they can fit into your project delivery. If you are unfamiliar with ATS overall, it's a product selection software that's free for the design community. Our goal is to keep manufacturers' information as up to date and accurate as possible, assist designers in configuring the real selection, not just a base model, but all the suffixes, making sure that there's no conflicts from a center set punching on a basin to the center set punching on a lav. We have a rules-based system that ensures that you're meeting ADA and local building code all across the US. And of course, we have application recommendations where we suggest appropriate product uh, for a hospital versus a long-term care facility versus a student residence versus a hotel or casino, and even down to offices and condos. So all those different recommendations are kept up to date because of our direct relationship with manufacturers so that we can provide these free tools to make it as easy as possible for engineers, architects, interior designers, design build contractors, just to make those selections. So with our ATS University, we try to educate everyone on the products that are on the system. And today is going to be an AIA accredited CEU. So there will be a QR code at the end, and we'll also send over the list over to Ranveer and the Delta team in case anyone misses it. We always have our certificate of attendance go out as well. So if you need a non-accreditation, that'll get sent out through Natalia and her customer success team. If you have any further questions after the session, want a detailed deep dive on how the spec tool might fit your day to day, feel free to reach out to me, Zach at atspec.com, and I'll mostly be keeping an eye on questions, which you can put into the Q&A tab, and I'll raise them to Ranveer as we go along the way. With that all being said, pass it over to you, Ranveer. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone, for joining today, and thank you, Zach. For those unfamiliar, my name is Ranveer Dhillon. I'm the Business Development Manager for Delta Commercial. Delta Commercial manufactures plumbing products for the commercial market, anything from long-term care, as we're going to be talking about today, as all the way to, public facilities, hospitals, education, and so forth. Now, the topic that we're going to be covering today is plumbing solutions for long-term care facilities. And in this course, we're going to discuss the unique characteristics of long-term care and nursing home facilities and how to select plumbing products that make life easier for all the stakeholders in these locations. Now, we've got four learning objectives for this course. In the first part of the course, you'll understand the nature of long-term care and nursing homes and outline the unique plumbing needs in these environments. In the second part, we'll review plumbing industry standards related to water safety in long-term care facilities. In the third part, we're going to talk a little bit about faucet operation and how it impacts the long-term care resident as well as the caregivers. And finally, in part four, we'll discuss plumbing layout and fixture configuration solutions to achieve the optimal functionality for residents and care workers. So let's begin by explaining what we mean when we say long-term care facilities. So, as a quick background, North American communities are on the edge of an enormous change, but it isn't a change that should catch anybody by surprise. Of course, we have the baby boomers going into retirement now. So, we're all aging, of course. And right now in America, there's about 45 million Americans that are 65 or older. But by 2034 in the US, for the first time ever, it's going to be a country comprised of more older adults than of children. So, the US Census Bureau projects that there's going to be about 77 million people aged 65 and over compared to 76.5 million under the age of 18. So we'll see that a demographic flip. And in Canada, by 2041, seniors are projected to comprise almost a quarter of the Canadian population, about 24.5%, compared to just under 15% about 10 years ago. Those over 85 are expected to nearly triple to 6% of the population by 2041. This trend, of course, has resulted in the growing demand for senior living options, including long-term care facilities. So as we age, our housing needs will most likely change, and we may require more assistance with everyday activities, which is where long-term care facilities come into play. So on the slide, you see a representation of a spectrum of living options available as we age, ranging from fully independent living to fully assisted long-term care and everything in between. So long-term care facilities can be called assisted living homes, nursing homes, personal care facilities, residential continuing care facilities, or other similar names depending on the country and the region that you reside in. But at their core, these are locations where 24/7 support and care is available for the residents. So, long-term care facilities offer a high level of support. Some of these supports include care and services. So, we're talking about nursing care, personal care like bathing and dressing, medication management, therapeutic and support services. And they try to keep a residential setting. So, the facility provides a home-like environment with independent and sometimes shared living spaces, communal dining, and social activities for the residents. In terms of eligibility, most of these require that you be 18 and older, and have healthcare needs that can't be adequately met at home or in the community that you reside in. In terms of the levels of care, long-term care facilities offer various levels of care depending on the individual's needs. Some facilities may specialize in specific care areas, such as dementia care or palliative care, which we'll talk a little bit about in the next few slides. And then in terms of funding, long-term care facilities are often publicly funded, but some might be privately owned and operated. And these are alternatives to in-home community care. These facilities serve as an alternate for individuals who might require more support than can be provided in their own homes or through community-based services. So there are a variety of levels of care available at long-term care facilities, and that includes assisted living, which provides support with daily tasks like bathing, dressing, and medication management, along with meals, housekeeping, and social activities. And then there are memory care facilities, which are specialized care facilities for individuals with Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia, and they offer a secure environment with tailored programs for that setting. Palliative care is specialized medical care focused on improving the quality of life for people who have serious illnesses, regardless of whether they're curable or not. The goal here is to relieve symptoms, manage pain, and reduce the stress associated with the illness, not only for the patient, but also for their family. And then skilled nursing care offers 24-hour care, including medical supervision, medical management, and assistance with all activities of daily living, including those recovering from illness or injury or with chronic health conditions. Some facilities, like continuing care retirement communities, offer multiple levels of care on the same campus. This allows the residents to transition between levels as their needs change over the years. In these communities, a resident might begin their own independent apartment, and over time move into an assisted living room and then possibly into a memory care wing where staff and visitors need to use access codes to enter the area. So now let's talk a little bit about the stakeholders in long-term care facilities. And when it comes to yourself as an engineer or designer, you really have three customers that you're working with on a long-term care facility. The owner of the building, as well as the users of the spaces you design, which includes the staff and the residents. So all of their needs should be taken into consideration when specifying the plumbing products. And when we take a closer look, long-term care facilities, as we mentioned, can be either publicly or privately owned. In both cases, the priorities are very similar in terms of what needs to be considered when you're selecting plumbing and other sorts of products. The first is safety. This is always going to be paramount, and this is for the management and includes things like preventing falls, eliminating medication errors and infections, as well as providing adequate nutrition, hygiene, and ongoing support. In terms of the plumbing product selection, things such as increasing stability and reducing the risk of falls, burns, and infections all come into play here. The next is user experience, so creating an environment for the staff and residents that'll make the facility more comfortable for the staff, resident, and their family members. And this includes how products in the surroundings function and look. And then, of course, there's the cost of ownership. So whether it's public or private, long-term care facilities need to manage these costs to remain viable. So let's take a look at this a little bit closer. So it's not surprising that cost is often a key consideration when it comes to specifying products in a long-term care environment. But the true cost reaches far beyond the initial purchase price. So when you're selecting fixtures for a space, it pays for the specifiers, architects, designers, engineers, and contractors to consider the total cost of ownership or lifetime cost. That way they can make the most informed decision. So anything that you purchase in high quantities, such as faucets and fixtures, are viable candidates for cost of ownership consideration. So to create well-functioning buildings and also be efficient for those who own them, decision makers must weigh the lifetime value of making these purchases. Total cost of ownership is especially important when choosing plumbing fixtures because these devices are used multiple times a day. And when it comes to plumbing, all costs, indirect and direct, incurred through the life cycle of a product should be considered. Some of these include the ones that you see on the screen there. So durability, reliability, ease of installation, the required maintenance, which includes the repair parts and the associated labor, so how easy it is to actually change them out. The frequency of replacement, the product efficiency, the infection prevention and control, and of course, sustainability as well. So when it comes to staff, safety is the most important thing whether it be the nursing, kitchen, cleaning, or maintenance staff. So not only is it important that the residents are secure, but that the staff members are surrounded by equipment that helps them keep themselves safe when they're servicing or attending to the clients. Next is the functionality. So equipment's designed to minimize physical strain on the staff, and that can reduce injuries and improve job satisfaction. Serviceability. So staff rely on the products in the facility that can withstand daily use and require a minimal maintenance. And this ensures they're functioning and available whenever they're needed. And at the times that they do go down for maintenance, we want to make sure that that downtime is minimal so that through easy access to repair parts and replacement equipment, that equipment can go back up quickly. And then cleanliness. Interacting in an environment that's easy to clean helps to maintain everyone's comfort and prevent infections, of course. For the residents, safety again is top of mind, so they need to feel secure in their environment and trust that their physical needs are going to be met. Dignity, so as many residents need assistance with everyday activities such as grooming and bathing, general design and the products selected support these functions and should be flexible in order to help them assist with those tasks. Cleanliness, again, a comfortable, clean, and well-maintained environment that feels like home can help enhance a resident's sense of well-being. Aesthetics. So this is something that's come into play more and more over the last few years, and I think the trend is going to continue. But traditionally, we look at very institutional looking products, but long term, in many cases, maybe the last residence that's known by people who stay there. And to that end, a comfortable and well furnished environment feels like home is important to the overall well-being of the resident and their families. Now let's talk a little bit about building codes and standards that need to be considered when you're choosing these products. So it's important to ensure that all building and plumbing codes are adhered to, whether the long-term care facility is a new build or renovation. Throughout North America, there exists specific long-term care building codes supported by additional plumbing codes and standards, allowing us and our loved ones to feel safe in these types of facilities. So while these codes and standards have several objectives, their primary goal is to protect public health. In the US, the Facility Guidelines Institute has created guidelines for design and construction that are widely recognized standards for planning, designing, and constructing healthcare facilities. Many federal agencies and states use this as either their regulation or a reference to a standard when reviewing or licensing healthcare facilities, such as long-term care buildings. The intent of the Residential Healthcare and Support Facilities Guideline is to enhance the quality of care while protecting the patients and staff. The guidelines consolidate minimum program, space, risk assessment, infection prevention, architectural detail, surface, built-in furnishing, and building system requirements in one place. States and federal agencies use these guidelines to regulate new construction and major renovation of residential care facilities. In Canada, there are also building guidelines and regulations that have to be followed when constructing long-term care facilities. And these guidelines covered various aspects of design, including accessibility, fire safety, infection control, and resident well-being. And in addition to national and provincial building codes, long-term care construction is generally guided by standards such as those provided by the CSA group through CSA Z8000. I believe Z8018 is the latest one, and that outlines requirements for planning, design, and construction of healthcare facilities overall. So this Z8000 standard promotes practices in infection and prevention and control throughout all stages of planning, design, and construction to create environments where healthcare associated infections are reduced and better patient outcomes are supported. Now, Z8000 isn't mandatory in Canada. However, it's widely adopted by many accredited long-term care facilities as a best practice. Another standard is the CSA Z317.1 standard called Special Requirements for Plumbing Installations in Healthcare Facilities, and this outlines the specific requirements for plumbing systems in healthcare settings. This standard covers aspects related to the design, construction, operation, and maintenance of these systems, and helps to ensure that they meet the unique needs of healthcare facilities versus other commercial settings. Now, some Canadian long-term care facilities and design professionals may also refer to the Ontario Ministry Long-Term Care Home Design Manual. This is a guide for long-term care, and they may also refer to the same documents that we considered on the previous slide for the US as well. So let's talk a little bit about codes versus standards and the bodies who govern them. So in order to sell products, they have to meet the laws and regulations of where they're being offered for sale and installed. So some of the governing bodies you're likely aware of already are standard development organizations. So these are the authors of the performance standards that have to be adopted into codes or regulations. So this may be ASME, CSA, IATMO, NSF, UL, or ASSE. And then there are Standard Development Organization accreditors. So these are the organizations that ensure the integrity of the SDOs, the Standard Development Organizations, by overseeing the standards and conformity assessments at a national level. So these could be ANSI or SCC. The law is the plumbing code adopted by the province or state and the city bylaws. To simplify the codes, it usually references several standards like the harmonized ASME A112 or the CSA B125 plumbing supply fitting standard. And because these standards are referenced in the plumbing code, they become part of the law, right? So they're not explicitly part of the law, but because they're referenced, they do become part of the law. So one way of looking at the difference between codes and standards is that a code tells you what you need to do, and a standard tells you how to do it. So a code may say that a building must have tempered water, but the standard will spell out what kind of system and how it must work. So not all codes and standards may be created equally, especially in the case of a facility that's providing any form of healthcare. So, for example, some local jurisdictions have made compliance with water sense mandatory within the building code. However, these requirements might be in direct opposition to infection control requirements in the building. So you can see where the efficiency requirements might conflict with the requirements for healthcare, where the primary focus is on infection prevention and control, as well as safety, not on water conservation. So meeting the codes and standards requires an early and open communication with the project team, the owner, and what are called authority having jurisdictions, or AHJs. So an AHJ is an organization, agency, or individual responsible for enforcing codes, standards, and regulations related to building construction, fire prevention, and life safety. And these really should be consulted right at the start of the project. One question I get is, what is an AHJ? Can you give me some examples? So these could be electrical inspectors, building code officials, zoning administrators that authorize permits, somebody who conducts inspections or issues final approvals. It could also be private organizations in certain communities or even staff at a publicly owned utility like a hydro company, for example. So it's critical to find out which standard and design guides need to be applied and ensure a complete understanding of expectations. By doing this at the start of the project, you can make sure that the AHJs that need to be satisfied for this particular build or project are going to be aligned to the way that you're going to construct and design a building, instead of finding out later in the project. Next, there's product certification, which needs to be visible on the plumbing products that you select for installation. So these are just some of the regulations, industry standards, and codes that affect plumbing products in commercial buildings. Again, meeting codes and standards requires early communication channels between the entire project team, including early consulting with qualified building and plumbing professionals, and staying informed about relevant codes and standards nationally as well as locally. Now let's move on to plumbing products that are used in long-term care facilities themselves. Now, cognitive issues and mobility deficiencies are very common with residents in long-term care facilities, and that can make daily tasks such as washing and bathing a challenge. So, when we're choosing plumbing products for long-term care facilities, the team should consider the safety, accessibility, ease of use, and the durability and maintenance for both residents and staff. So, this includes features like anti-scald devices, hands-free faucets, product heights, and durable materials that can withstand frequent use and stringent cleaning products. So accessibility for residents with mobility limitations is crucial. So features like grab bars, adjustable height sinks, and lever handles come into play here. And assistance for staff who are attending to the residents are also crucial, but not only for the resident and staff safety, but also for staff confidence in managing what can be highly personal acts such as bathing and washing, where personal dignity comes into play. So it's important to spend some time thinking about what is and what is not important in each area of a long-term care facility. For example, a singular resident room may have different considerations than a shared living space, a resident room in the memory care area, or the nurse's station or public washrooms. So plumbing safety in a long-term care residence is crucial for preventing injuries and infections among the vulnerable population that will be occupying it. And this includes ensuring proper water temperature control to prevent scalding, preventing waterborne illnesses, and addressing potential hazards like leaks, which could lead to slipping. A common way that bacteria can form is through lukewarm water temperatures, because it thrives in water between 68 degrees Fahrenheit and 122 degrees Fahrenheit, with an ideal growth temperature between 95 and 115. This makes it a potential breeding ground for bacteria. Another situation ideal for opportunistic bacteria growth are the use of low flow plumbing fixtures because they are moving the water slower through the distribution piping runs, and stagnant water within a piping system runs the risk of having disinfectant dissipate. And of course, this invites the potential growth of Legionella bacteria. A facility manager's ability to fully eliminate these risks of bacteria has a lot to do with proper system design and water management. So this chart shows how quickly different exposure times and water temperatures can cause first, second, and third degree burns. And as you can see, it may only take a few seconds of additional exposure where a more dangerous burn can occur. So it's important to select products that help to protect the residents from water that's too hot. So, especially for senior residents who typically have thinner skin or those with cognitive impairments, or even with limited mobility who might not be able to adjust the water temperature quickly, anti-scald devices are essential to prevent burns. So, resident and public bathrooms, in addition to bathing rooms, have to be given consideration, and engineers should take a plumbing systems approach when specifying plumbing solutions. A temperature limit stop, also known as a rotational limit stop or a hot limit stop, is a safety feature that limits how far the faucet handle can turn towards the hot water side. This can help prevent scalding by ensuring the water temperature doesn't exceed a safe level, which is typically around 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees Celsius, though local codes may vary. Most faucet manufacturers offer this feature on some of their faucets as well as their shower valves as well. And when it comes to tub and shower valve cartridges, there are two types. So a pressure balance, the one at the top there, automatically adjusts the flow of hot and cold water exiting the valve. This maintains a consistent outlet temperature despite fluctuations in hot and cold water supply pressure. Some manufacturers use a spool and sleeve technology inside the cartridge, others use a diaphragm mechanism, but the idea here is the same. So they're balancing pressure. What this means is if you've got the handle about 50% of the way turned, so you're getting approximately 50-50 hot and cold water, and somebody flushes the toilet, that will drop the pressure in the cold water. And in this case, the pressure balancing cartridge will drop the pressure on the hot side as well, so that you're still getting that 50-50 mix. A thermostatic valve cartridge works like a thermostat to control the temperature of the water, and it uses a wax and spring configuration to measure and monitor the temperature of the water directly. And it automatically adjusts the hot and cold water mixture to create a more precise water temperature. Even though they work differently, both pressure balance and thermostatic valve cartridges maintain a consistent outlet temperature, which ensures a comfortable showering experience.
Sorry, just before, oh, I guess we're actually getting into it right here, but there's a question that came in from the chat on the hot water limit stops and referencing it back to the codes and standards on
Mhm.
whether the hot water limit stop would be, ASCII compliant. So I guess you're ready to cover it.
Yeah, the quick answer to that is no. So in most codes and standards, building codes, they require a thermostatic element somewhere in the system. So the limit stop basically is just a mechanical stop to limit how far somebody can turn the handle. What that means is it may limit the handle to turning only 25% of the way to the left, which means theoretically you should never be able to get fully hot water. But what happens if the cold water turns off is now you have no cold water and only hot water. So that doesn't meet the requirements in most cases. In most cases, you will still need a thermostatic mixing valve or other device to limit the temperature to 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 49 degrees Celsius. So that actually does get into our conversation on this slide. So temperature limiting valves or thermostatic valves can be incorporated into the system as well when predetermined maximum water temperature is a must to minimize the risk of scalding. And in this case, an ASSE 1070 mixing valve is a standard for local mixing valves to limit hot water temperatures to 120 degrees. So that ASSE 1070 standard is what is usually referred to in most codes. And these mixing valves are installed near the point of use. So a common application includes limiting temperatures at sinks and delivering tempered water to lavatories with or without automatic or metering faucets, as well as limiting hot water temperature to a specific side of a faucet and fixture. So this is where this would come into play is you would have a thermostatic mixing valve on the hot side of a faucet. That way, even if there is no limit stop or the cold water turns off, that water will always be limited to 49 degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius or 120 degrees Fahrenheit. On the shower side, the same standard is ASSE 1016. So this also limits the temperature to 120 degrees Fahrenheit on shower systems. And then ASSE 1069 delivers 120 degrees Fahrenheit tempered water to serve shower rooms that utilize push button metering valves or automatic valves in a single temperature shower system. Now, I should mention these valves are available from various manufacturers as point of use or supplying a bank of faucets. So you can have one thermostatic mixing valve supplying multiple faucets. And there are even faucets which integrate the ASSE 1070 thermostatic valve into the cartridge of the faucet. So that way you don't need the mixing valve under the deck. And it performs the same operation as having a thermostatic mixing valve on the hot side, which means it will always limit the temperature to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And if the cold water shuts off, the hot water will go down to just drops or a trickle. So, by incorporating multiple or overlapping mitigation strategies, you can even further reduce the risk of bacteria in your long-term care facility, sometimes referred to as a belt and suspenders connection. So, in this example, the belt is keeping the water in the hot water heater high enough to kill off bacteria. And on the suspender side is the installation of a temperature limiting mixing valve, such as a thermostatic mixing valve, at the point of use to prevent users from being scalded. So, in simple terms, what this is trying to refer to is If you keep the water in the hot water tank above, say, about 80 degrees Celsius, 180 degrees Fahrenheit, that will keep the hot water in the system hot enough to kill off bacteria. But then you introduce the thermostatic mixing valve at the point of use, or just before a bank of faucets, and that will make sure that the hot water is tempered enough down to a cold enough temperature that it's not going to scald anybody. So that's your belt and suspenders. So in long-term care settings, water is everywhere because it plays a significant therapeutic and hygienic role, of course. But in the pipes, there's the danger that they can carry infectious pathogens if the water becomes stagnant. So in general, stagnant water is the enemy of infection prevention and control. Think of a water system where you have a run of faucets, and then at the end, you add an extra 5 feet and cap off the pipe. That extra 5 feet with the capped off pipe is going to eventually have the chloramine dissipate, and it will start harboring bacteria. Now, if you have a faucet that's not used often, it's the same as having that extra run of 5 feet capped off because that water is not going to move for a long time. So, programmable faucet flushing in long-term care residences is a water management strategy used to help prevent Legionella and other waterborne pathogens from colonizing in plumbing systems. So these system allows for an automatic flushing at specific intervals. So in many cases, it'll be like run the faucet for 30 seconds every 24 hours just to keep the water moving. This type of proactive approach helps maintain water quality and reduces the risk of infections, especially in vulnerable populations like long-term care facilities. And this is also quite common in hospitals as well. They'll have automatic faucets which will flush every 24 hours just to keep the water moving. So another concern is stagnant water in the shower system of patient rooms. So the shower hose and the water in the pipes may only partially drain after repeated use, and having nurses' aides drape down shower hoses into the shower stall to drip out the water doesn't fully drain the water and creates additional safety hazards, not to mention the extra time that they have to take. So there are now methods for anti-stagnation to help reduce bacteria to retrofit existing showers or build it in with the new shower construction. For retrofit, especially shower hoses, they can be automatically draining the standing water in the shower hose with a special drain assembly. After each use, the water automatically drains from the hand spray and hose via through a drain assembly that's integrated into the hose, and that allows the water to easily flow out. This eliminates the standing water in the hose and also eliminates having the shower head touch the floor when they actually just pull it out and drop it onto the floor. So if you're using flush valves for the toilet, you might also want to seek out one that has adjustability features to fine-tune how the bowl and the valve work together. So having an adjustable flush valve means that you can actually adjust the flush volume. So if you're getting splashing, you can reduce it down. If you're not getting a full flush, you can increase the flush volume. And this can help minimize toilet plume or the dispersal of microscopic particles as a result of flushing the toilet. In addition to the shower area being ADA compliant, you should also consider how the staff and patients will be using the various shower areas in long-term care facilities. In many cases, the resident will either be partially or fully assisted by family or nursing staff. So ensuring that the shower mechanisms are easy to turn on and off is critical, and that the hand shower can be hung up out of the way is also important. In addition, zero barrier shower sounds so that the wheelchairs can easily access the area are also important. So in many cases, this is going to be a tub or shower system where you can roll in the wheelchair. And accessories such as grab bars and hand showers should be thought of and placed not just for the resident, but also for the assistance and safety of those who will be using them. So now let's talk a little bit about accessibility. So ease of accessibility for residents with mobility limitations, of course, is crucial in a long-term care facility. And the ease of turning on and off a faucet is an important consideration when you're selecting product in a long-term care facility. That's where the hands-free faucets can play a critical role. These can be especially helpful in sinks used by multiple residents or for residents with limited hand dexterity. Different factors such as the budget, accessibility needs, nature of the primary user, how water needs to be delivered, and the water usage control contribute to the ultimate answer. But as an example, the concept of hands-free might be foreign to residents in a memory care unit that grew up with a manual faucet in their home and could be confused by a faucet that goes on and off by itself versus a different wing of the same facility where an automatic faucet might be crucial in helping to reduce bacteria as well as water usage. So if you are selecting an electronic faucet in your project, there are three sensing types that are available on the market. The first is traditional infrared. So this emits an LED infrared light, and basically it just picks up on the intensity that's reflected back. Once something interrupts or reflects back enough light, it can activate the solenoid. However, it can be impacted by darker clothing or rough and dry textures, such as coming in on a cold day from a cold winter day, coming into a facility and having white, flaky, dry hands. As these might absorb more light and the sensor could not pick up enough reflected light. The second type is optics, in which case you're not using intensity, you're using a sensing technology that calculates the distance of an object placed in front of it and activates when something is placed within a distance that's determined by the programming. So this eliminates the issues with dry skin and darker clothing. And then the last type is capacitance-based technology. So this works by emitting an electrical field around the object. It doesn't use visual sensors at all. And any target that interrupts that field activates the object. So think of this like, in school you had that diagram of a magnet with the north and the south, and you had waves going from north to south. Think of this basically, your hand comes in and interrupts one of those waves, and that's what actually sends off the sensor. So you can also choose to use manual faucets, of course, and spaces where you might want to consider manual over hands-free, as we talked about, would be memory care units where residents function more intuitively with a faucet that has functioning handles. As mentioned before, several manufacturers provide a temperature limit stop in order to preset maximum temperatures, and there are also faucets that have the ASSE 1070 thermostatic cartridge built into it. If you are selecting a manual faucet for any of your healthcare projects, you'll want to consider whether you want to go with a single handle or a two handle product. And the ADA requires that a person must be able to turn on a faucet without twisting or straining the wrist and using less than 5 pounds of force. The ability to activate the water flow easily and with only one hand makes it simpler for people with physical limitations to turn on the water, and the user shouldn't have to grip or pinch the handle with force in order to get the water to flow. Now on to the ease of product use. So the ease of turning on and off a faucet or flushing a toilet is an important consideration when you're talking about long-term care. And fixtures should have simple and intuitive controls that are easy for residents and staff to understand and operate. So in this case, what we're looking at here is providing red and blue indicators on the handles, which might make it easier for residents to see what temperature or which handle is hot and cold. And this also works for ADA compliance, where they might be in a wheelchair and might not see the top indicators located here, and they would be able to see these on the wings here. Controls should be placed in easy reach for residents and staff, considering potential limitations in reach or mobility. So accessories such as soap dispensers should be within reach of the faucet. The sink height should accommodate whether a resident is upright or uses a mobility device such as a walker or wheelchair. And grab bars should be appropriately placed to provide stability and peace of mind for the residents. Now let's talk a little bit about product maintenance. So in long-term care, there's a demand for enhanced cleanliness and effective maintenance, and that's so staff can more easily navigate their responsibilities. And reliable and easy to maintain plumbing products are also the answer to disruptive room shutdowns that can result in resident discomfort and confusion. And something as simple as a failing faucet could render a whole room unusable. Or waiting for a valve replacement could mean having to temporarily move residents to a different part of the facility. As we mentioned earlier, are easy to maintain systems that feature redundancy are key to success in these settings. And of course, a poorly maintained plumbing system can hold dangerous bacteria, which can harm patients and visitors and staff. And the regularly scheduled cleaning and maintenance helps to protect patients, staff, and visitors inside these long-term care facilities. So for tubs and showers, the limit stop should be checked and adjusted seasonally to reflect changes in cold water temperature. So one thing that we don't talk about much is in the winter when the groundwater is colder, you might need to adjust the temperature limit stop so that more hot water is allowed to get that comfortable mixture of water. In the summer, when the groundwater is warmer, you might need less hot water to get that same temperature. One way of avoiding this is having that thermostatic element as part of the system so that it's adjusting to a temperature and not to a limit stop. So in terms of maintenance, there's specific cleaning protocols for long-term care facilities to prevent the spread of germs. And these include routine cleaning of high-touch surfaces, proper use of disinfectants, and staff training on the cleaning procedures themselves. And long-term care facilities are required to implement infection prevention and control programs that include environmental cleaning and disinfection protocols. So these protocols are crucial for maintaining a safe and healthy environment for residents. And in these settings, specific cleaning products are used to ensure a high level of hygiene and germ control. So it's important to ensure that when you select plumbing products that have been tested to withstand the harshness and commercial grade disinfectants, not only on the surface, but also on the inner workings, that they're going to be able to withstand that. It's essential that electronic elements have been properly sealed so that the chemicals don't affect the faucet's performance if you're going electronic. And finally, when you're selecting plumbing products, it's important to think about your client. So how easy will it be for maintenance staff to shut off the products for servicing? How often will parts, including batteries, need to be replaced? And how easy will it be for the staff to get the parts that they need to repair something when it goes wrong? Does the faucet let you know when the batteries need to be replaced before it goes inactive, or is it just going to stop working? Finally, how responsive is the manufacturer when joint problem solving is required, whether it's remotely or on site? And this is where working with a reputable manufacturer with experience in long-term care would certainly be a benefit. Now, looking at other considerations, one other consideration is water conservation. So I mentioned earlier that usually in healthcare facilities, the primary goal is not water conservation, it's safety, but it still is something that you need to consider. So um, when you're selecting plumbing products, look for water efficient fixtures such as low flow toilets and faucets. This will help the facility owners to reduce water consumption and utility costs. But again, it's a balance between water conservation and safety and having enough flow to make it adequate. Finally, we also want to think about the aesthetic and the comfort in a long-term care home. So creating a pleasant surrounding so that it can go a long way in easing the stress of the residents and the visitors is important. And an attractively designed room that veers away from too much institutional looking can lend itself to an overall positive experience as well. And this is especially becoming more of a trend in palliative care, where this is going to be the last facility or the last home of those residents. And we really want to make sure that they feel comfortable. They don't feel like they're in an institution. Now, looking at the layout, in all applications, whether it's the nurse's station, kitchen, resident, or public washroom, or the shower room, the faucet and fixture need to work as a system. The faucet and sink need to work in tandem as do the toilet or urinal and flush valve, and the shower surround or tub and shower valve and hand shower or shower head need to work together as well. So it's especially important that you consider the unique aspects of the vast assortment that you can specify from, and that these pieces work in unison to meet your project's desired outcome. To do that, it's a good idea to have a list of what you need the products to accomplish in each room and a good understanding of the functions available today in both faucets and fixtures so that you can mix and match those and combine, when combined, you'll ensure that you meet the goals of your facility. In addition to the room design, the piping design also needs careful consideration in long-term care facility. So here we're just pointing out what I mentioned earlier, that extra dead leg. So in plumbing, a dead leg is a segment of pipe in a water system where water becomes stagnant due to lack of flow. This is often caused by a capped off branch or an unused fixture. So a faucet that only gets turned on once every few months is the same as having a capped dead end. These stagnant areas are dangerous because they can become breeding grounds for bacteria and other contaminants and potentially lead to health risks such as Legionnaires or Legionella. The ideal solution is to minimize or even better remove these dead legs entirely. And otherwise, if it's a fixture that you can't remove, these should be regularly flushed or capped back to a very short length to minimize the stagnation and prevent contamination. So we're coming up on the end here, and to conclude, let's review some of the key highlights. So resident and staff safety should be considered the number one priority when you're designing long-term care facilities. The products selected should meet all industry standards and codes to ensure there are no surprises when the inspectors come to review your work. It's essential that products are selected as part of a system that all work in harmony to meet the project goals. Keeping updated on future technologies is a good way to stay relevant for your clients, and working with reputable manufacturers will help you and your clients succeed in the long term. That brings me to the end here. So, for those attending, thank you very much for participating in this session today. If you are using CEU events to get your participation or your attendance record, this is the code that you'll need to enter. If you haven't signed up on CEU events yet, you can scan the QR code on the right there and enter that same code, 9M2N, and you'll get your record of attendance through that means. At this
And
point,
just as a
yep.
note as well, our customer success team will send out our follow-up emails, which will be able to get the code to anyone as well in case you miss it.
Beautiful. Perfect. I'll open it up to any questions.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. That was very detailed. I appreciate the it was funny that there was another one that you got halfway. I was about to break in and ask about water efficiency and you led us there again. So must have been a great layout because you were answering the questions as they came in.
Excellent. Glad to hear that.
Just while we have a few minutes, I'm going to take over screen share real quick. If there's any
Yes.
questions that come in, we can always pause and come back to it. Um, I just really want to make sure that we show all the people how quick and easy it can be to get your accurate selection for these long-term care applications through the ATS spec tool. So if you are with us for the first time, once again, thank you for joining our ATS University session. We do a wide variety of these from application breakdowns like we talked about today. We've done deep dives on various sizing and selection for backflow or water heaters or pump sizing. And we've done code-based detailed discussions on ADA for showers and grab bars and partitions. We had a great one. If you're from the architectural interior design realm, we had a great one last week on privacy partitions and the challenges and code specifics around there. If you want to review any of our previously recorded sessions, just go to atspec.com, the Learning Hub, and our webinar recordings will take you directly into that recorded session where you can learn more about sizing or come back to the presentation that we talked about today. Say you want to reference the mixing valve standards that Renvier went over. You can also log in and make any of the selections directly on the system. Now, the goal of this ATS spec tool is again to provide direct connection to the manufacturer's products so that they are as accurate as possible. Obviously, every manufacturer has their spec sheets loaded on a website, but that website is going to generally give you the generic version, an 81T flush valve, for example. Whereas the spec tool is to help you select the accurate version that meets the requirements for your job, gives you all the options that you configure the selection for, and then delivers the output in, I think, about 10 different formats, one of which will surely work for your job. So we have CSI three-part formats, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, where you have a description, then the basis of design, model name and number, Again, you can see the actual selection here, not just a base model. And then we have a new feature that allows you to have all your approved alternates. So the goal is to have a minimization of the work required. The goal would be not to need to update every model name and number every single time. And you can handle your alternates different ways. Some people put a full model name and number for all three products in selection, and others might just list a basis of design and then the approved brands. So we can help set that up for you by your firm type so that your masters are aligned with how your firm goes to market. We have different versions with different detail, a short spec as well as a long spec, all available in Word. All of these, again, available to be simply copied and pasted and put into your internal book spec or output spec or directly on your drawings. We have schedules as well, so you can take the Excel, hit Control C, Control V, and pop it into your CAD. And then, of course, the submittal documents, which shows the configured model name and number, list price where available. We have product brochure, so it shows more of a. This is great for your design meetings where maybe you're going through a few options. I always use the flush valve example where you might have a manual option and a sensor operated option. Or if someone's told you, hey, yes, I want a sensor operated flush valve for this job, but they've not specified if they want a concealed flush valve or an exposed flush valve. This is great for those early design review meetings where you can present the options and then simply and easily edit the selection. And of course, the manufacturer spec sheets are also embedded in the system. Really nice table of contents, exactly what's selected. And then all the dimensional information that might come from the document. With EPD included as well. So if you do need the environmental protection declarations, those are embedded in the system as well. So these are the documents that we're providing, just tied into the system. They're free and available for you to integrate into your projects. Once you're within the system, it's so fast and easy to get those into a project file now. We have our quick actions bar here with our quick spec projects and masters. Quick spec is just as it sounds, where you're looking for a single product, like we'll say a flush valve. And you would just create a quick spec, search for the category. We can find, what's your favorite flush valve, Ranveer? 81T?
Let's go with the 81T201.
Perfect. So you can scroll through, you can filter down through the tabs on the left. Is that the hardwired option? So once we select, if we want the matte black option here, we'll do a high efficiency version. And you can see it's auto selecting the additional options as it goes. So here's your 81T201 with the configured model name and number and your list price included. So in a matter of seconds, we've made our selection. And again, you can see options that do not work with that selection that you've made are being deselected along the way. So you can't make the error is the goal of the system. So then you get the recommended connection kit here with your hardwired kit. Hit add product. And if you were doing a full toilet assembly where you selected your bowl, your seat, your flush valve, your carrier, then you would simply download it now. You can also use our masters and templates. And this is what I mean by how quick and easy it is. This package that I put together just before the session as we were waiting to get started, 20 something selections. In a matter of seconds, you can take from the masters and templates, which would be your firm's masters here. I'm in my demo account, so see ATS internals. And then our ATS templates are available here. And you could simply search for hospital. And we have hospital master template, where we can find our hand hygiene sinks and simply drag and drop them over. Or we can go into manual fixtures, hardwired fixtures, showers, scrub, plaster, all these different product types. And we can go through, Ranveer made a great point. Some areas in a facility might be manual. Here's some manual options. Maybe we want to present a few different options to our owner group again. We simply drag and drop that into the job. If we want to put together some sensor operated options, we have our hardwired. We know that we're going with exposed hardwired toilets for the barrier free, and then our urinals and our wall hung barrier free lavs. Just drag and drop those over. Matter of seconds, we're up to date. And these are again coming from our ATS templates, which follow the manufacturer's recommendations, follow those FGI guides, and make sure we're recommending appropriately. But we can also customize these to your firm's masters here. So you could have uh, Zach and Rin Veer's engineering team, healthcare or long-term care master. And they can be tailored to the way that you like to deliver the product, right down to, from your fixtures to your drains to your mixing valves to your water heaters. We can get a full mechanical room up and ready in seconds. Just drag and drop it over. So full range of products here to help you deliver the job. And again, once we're done, we just simply download it in those formats that we saw before. They're hidden by my controls here, so I gotta move that, hit download spec, and then you could just download in seconds. So that's the goal of the ATS spec tool. Give you complete, accurate information as fast as possible. Make it super simple to drag and drop, and then you just edit it to suit your job. So if there are regional specific or a particular AHJ has a different flow rate requirement, you can edit that template as Ranveer showed us during the presentation today. So with that all being said, that's everything for me. Thank you very much for attending. Appreciate everyone's time today. If you would like more detailed discussion on this, whether it be to discuss long-term care or set up your master or just an ATS or Delta overview, we're happy to join and do a Teams or swing by your office and help get you up to speed. Thank you all for joining us today. Well, I think we're back again next week. We're continuing on our barrier-free discussion, I believe, and hopefully you'll join us again then. Have a good rest of the day. We'll stick around and answer any questions that might have come up.
Yeah, we've got a couple, Zach. The first one is